and welcome to the Flying Frog podcast, where this week it's just me, Graham Hoskins, as Natalie Calvert can't make it, and I'm joined by Paul Harris, who is Executive Director, Customer Experience at Curo Housing. Now, Paul has been leading digital transformation and customer experience strategy at Curo since 2017, having previously held a wide range of customer experience, transformation, marketing, and communication roles. Paul, welcome.
Hi, nice to see you, Graham.
Likewise, yeah. Now, given Paul's history and background, it won't come as any surprise that in this podcast, we want to focus on how hybrid working has impacted customer experience. But just to kick us off, before we get into customer experience, Paul, where are Curo now with your hybrid working model?
Well, we're at an interesting point, really, because clearly lots of people feel that lockdown is over and we can start behaving the way we used to behave before the pandemic started. We're taking quite a cautious approach. So for the first 9 months or so of the lockdown period, we changed a lot of our processes and services, and we had a very small number of people in our offices, probably about 5% of what we used to have. And we've been slowly building that back up, but we're still only at about 15 to 20% of people working from offices compared to what it used to be like. The issue I think we're still not clear on is, what does the next 6 to 12 months look like externally, in terms of, will there be more variants, what will happen with infection levels, with hospitalisation rates, etc. And then how does that affect our ability to not only deliver our services to customers, but to protect the well-being of our colleagues. And we like most businesses, have got people at all ends and parts of a spectrum. We've got some people who are very happy to stay at home and never come back to the office. We've got people who are desperate to be in the office all the time, and everything in between. And we're still navigating through that at the moment. I think the interesting thing from my point of view is, I've seen lots of businesses in my sector and elsewhere be very clear about what they want, and they've all come out saying everybody will work 3 days a week, or everybody will work in this way from now on. I just don't know how businesses can be that sure at the moment. We aren't, and we haven't come out with such a proclamation, but we're working through it still.
I know that Natalie had a question about longer term impacts.
So Paul, bearing in mind what you've just said, looking into the future, if you had a crystal ball, what do you think the longer term impact of hybrid working will be for your employees? How do you see that panning out?
It's difficult to know how long term the impacts are. I mean, we've got definite problems with anxiety and stress with our employees, more than we used to have. We work in a sector which is maybe different from many others, in that we have a very high proportion of vulnerable customers who we work with. So it can be more stressful and more difficult from a well-being and mental health point of view to just do the job than it might be if you were working in a higher end boutique or some other sector where you had a broader range of customers to deal with. So we always have that issue, but it's definitely been worse in the last 18 months. And it's difficult to know what the long-term effects are. And I don't think anybody knows at the moment, anyone claiming to do so. There's not enough evidence so far. We're clearly storing up some problems in society from a mental health point of view. No one knows what the impact on our kids is going to be. And I don't think anyone knows what the impact on adults is going to be either, because it's been really weird. No one's been through anything like this before. And it has caused people a lot of stress and anxiety. So I don't know what the long-term effects are. I don't imagine they're going to be good. And I do think that businesses are going to need to really focus a lot more on the well-being of their people and how to provide the flexibility to give people the right balance between work and their personal lives while still delivering for their customers.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on when you look at some really big organisations, some of the biggest ones around the world, who are saying this is now the way it will be, as well as some other ones saying, well, actually, no, we're going to wait. And I agree with you 100%. I don't quite know how any organisation can decide right now this is the way it will be. Yes.
Yeah, and some organisations have sold their offices, and you think, well, maybe that makes financial sense. But I think what we're seeing at the moment from a customer perspective is that the service levels are dropping a bit. We had this weird 9-month period when everybody was just delighted that we could do anything, and so our satisfaction levels were going up, even though we were probably delivering a bit less than we normally do. That's now reversed, and customers are much less forgiving, but the real issue for us is we're experiencing this cultural drift. We're a very values and culture focused organisation. I know everybody says that, but it's particularly true in Curo. And we're seeing our teams gradually drifting apart, and not just from each other, but within teams as well. And a large part of that is because they don't see each other. It's all like this. It's all on screen and independent and isolated. And we're lacking something as a result of that. And that is starting to come through in the service delivery that we have as well. So I'm trying to get the right balance in our business between encouraging more people to see each other and come back to offices and connect, but also to protect people's well-being and also give them the flexibility that they deserve to managing their lives in a different way during a pandemic.
Absolutely. So you mentioned about the impact on customers, and that initially customer satisfaction measures certainly went higher. But I know when we've talked before, you talked about some quite specific things about how initially hybrid working impacted the customer experience, and then more about how it changed over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a shock to everybody because on March the 23rd last year, everything changed overnight. I remember going home from the office, and then I didn't set foot in it again for about 9 months. And that was the same thing for our customers, that they were used to us providing certain services in a certain way, and then overnight we couldn't do many of them, and we had to change them dramatically, and we had to ask more of customers as well. You need to act in this way for us to be able to go into your home safely. You need to have this level of expectation when you ring us, because we can't do some of the things we used to do. So it did change very quickly, and I have to say, I think our customers were brilliant. They were very understanding, and they gave us the benefit of the doubt, and they were really grateful for the stuff that we were able to do. And the people who were very vulnerable and very worried kept away and didn't want anything to do with us, and we had to say that's fine. But as time has gone on, it has oscillated and changed in different ways for different sorts of customers and different services. And one of the things is that our head office used to have customers coming in every day off the street. They would walk in and come and talk to us, or they would have appointments, and we haven't been able to offer that safely. We're about to switch it back on next month, but that will be the first time in 19 months that we've allowed customers into our main building. And they have been getting a bit angry about that in the past few months. Like, we see you in there, why can't we come in there? Well, it's not that straightforward, because to do it safely, we've got to repurpose all of our space to allow you to come in and meet with us without, bothering other people and affecting other people. And, what do we say about jabs and masks and all that kind of stuff? We're still in a grey area. I mean, as much as our government tries to pretend it's all very black and white, it isn't at all. And, we still have issues now with our colleagues that I know that somebody over there has not been vaccinated. I don't want to be on the same floor as her. And we can't do anything about that because there's no legislation in place. There's no mandate. We just have to try and manage it in an adult way if we can. But all of these things are still going on, and they aren't going to get, I think, clarified, certainly not until next year now, from what we're hearing from the government more recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're just going back to when everyone 20 months ago was one day they're working in the office and then the next day they're not. So that presumably created some very specific issues with the way partly the way the staff and the team members interacted with your customers, but also their ability to provide information, for example, because you're suddenly in a space and it's just you with the best will in the world, hopefully you've got as much information at your fingertips as you did when you were sat in your computer in the office, but you're not surrounded by people who also have information, are you?
Yeah, I think that's been the big difference. We were very lucky. I think the pandemic happened at a time when our IT infrastructure was set up nicely for us to be able to just flip over to virtual working, not through any sort of prescience on our part, but just, it happened at a time when we were able to do that without any problems at all. So technically it was an easy switch, but mentally it's very difficult for people to suddenly be in their home rather than be surrounded by people at work. And we had a big open plan office, and it's exactly that point you mentioned. It's the connection, the ability to bounce ideas off people, to check things, to find things that you don't know. We've had about 30% of people in our business weren't here before lockdown. We've recruited about 30% of the business today wasn't here before lockdown, so they've never known Curo. as I knew it beforehand. They've got nothing to compare it to, and it's just bloody weird. They join a business online, they have inductions online, and then that we expect them to get a feel for the culture and the values of the business, and it's not easy to do. So all of those things about connection and communication, they've been the most difficult, but actually running services and having systems working properly has been relatively easy.
So I know you said that the customer satisfaction levels, you think because your customers were giving you, they were thankful for just being able to do what it was you were able to do. So those levels went up during this first part of the pandemic. Did you get any feedback from the staff around how much harder they were finding it to give the customer experience, despite the fact those levels were going up?
We had a lot of feedback, and what we did for the first 6 months of the pandemic, we had our senior management team met every morning for 6 months, because we wanted to make sure we were on top of everything. But also we did fortnightly staff surveys to temperature check how people were feeling. So we had a lot of data about how people were feeling, and we have very open channels right through the business. So I think we understood what people felt. The issue, I don't think, was so much about the ability to deliver services. It was more about their anxiety, because most of those people would be out doing a repair in someone's home or doing something in a local community, or delivering house-to-house services to more vulnerable and older customers. So those people were having to wear PPE. Those people were having to deal with customers who were very scared, and that was the bit that was difficult for them. Delivering the service was neither here nor there, really, and that's their bread and butter. It was the additional time, the additional preparation, the additional equipment that they're having to wear, and then dealing with some people who were very anxious themselves, or on the other side of the coin, people who weren't anxious at all and behaving maybe inappropriately and making our colleagues feel a bit, whoa, hold on, can you step back, please? So I think that was the bigger difficulty. And then as time has gone on, that has just become more and more and more wearing on people, that to do this for so long. I mean, one of my teams, they've been wearing PPE every day for 19 months. They are sick of it. It is so, I mean, they're not working in hospitals, and they don't have bruises all over their face or anything. It's just, they're sick of it. It's so demoralizing and tiresome, to have to behave in this way, and it's less efficient in lots of ways too, but they've kept themselves safe. So it's that impact, I think, on their morale and their well-being of having to do things in this way for so long and having to be so cagey around people. And we notice it now. We're going back to the office a little bit more, even myself going back in. Feels very different when people walk up to you in the office now. You don't sort of walk up in the way that you used to and shake hands or touch people's arms and everything. We're all a bit like, whoa, and it's just odd being with people. And that plays on people's minds as well. I know that we've got some people who are really nervous about coming back to the office, and other people who've done it and said, oh my God, this is so much better than when I was at home.
Yeah, I found that. I've been to a few clients and offices where, particularly when you're trying to drive or shape some kind of change in an organization, I'd much prefer doing it face to face. And I can see everybody I've spoken to pretty much says the same thing for induction and training, collaboration. There's just you can do it online, but it's not as good as doing it face to face. But you're right, you turn up in a collaborative space or a meeting room, and desks are still significantly far apart if you have the space to do so, and they're still walking around in a 2-meter bubble.
Yeah, which is, I think, the right thing to do, but it's odd, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. But having said that, it is so much better to be able to connect to people face to face. And actually, this week we have a customer conference on, where we've got customers coming into our office for the first time in 19 months, actually in a marquee out the back. And we're having a conference with customers safely distanced, and everybody's tested beforehand and everything. But that's just a complete breath of fresh air to be able to do that, actually be in the room with customers and be with them properly, listening to them and talking to them. So that's been great. And every time we do one of these things, it feels materially different to doing things online. But I don't know how much more we're going to be able to do, how quickly. And I think that the worry for all of us is that not enough people will take the vaccine, and we'll carry on seeing hospitalisation rates going up, and something will change over the winter, and we'll have to go backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah. So you mentioned a moment ago about uh, you have customers who historically would come into the building. It's over 20 months they haven't been able to do that, but they are. What, have you seen any other shifts in kind of the channel behaviour? Because I read lots about customers have shifted a huge shift away from phone to digital channels because there's been a challenge with staffing phones, but is that because customers want to move or because they haven't had a choice? What have you seen?
So I don't think our sector is going to be the same as many others, for the reason that we definitely have a high proportion of people who are non-digital, usually through age or capacity or sometimes choice and sometimes finances. So I would say about 25% of my customer base just will not engage digitally, and that makes us a little bit different. We do tend to have customers who are at the lower end of the affluence scale, so people who are struggling financially. That's what social housing is about. So it's a bit different for us. So we've not seen a massive shift to digital. We gently said to our customers, look, we aren't going to be able to deal with certain things on the phone, and we aren't going to be able to send people out for certain things as well. But if you want to use our online platform, then by all means do. And we did see more people using it, but certainly not everybody. And I think the issue with telephones is, depending on the nature of what you do. So for us, our business is looking after people in their homes and making sure they can have a good life. The things that our customers need to talk to us about, they're often quite personal. They're not about a pair of trainers or a toothbrush or whatever. It's about something that's had a big impact on their lives, about their money or about their job or about their family or about their neighbours. And they want to talk to us about those things. They can't really do that digitally in anything like the same way. So we are never going to experience the same level of digital shift as other sectors. We've seen a bit through lockdown, which we facilitated and are quite pleased about, because obviously for us, the more people who can use digital, it means the more time we can spend with those who can't. But yeah, we're not going to be a business that can put everything onto one app and say, that's how you deal with us. It's just not what we do.
And do you think that shift, albeit in your particular sector, maybe a smaller shift than in some others, towards digital will stay? Do you think that'll be permanent, or do you think it'll shift back in the same way? The customer satisfaction was kind of lenient for you during the most of the difficult times, and it's now snapped back. Expectations are just pretty much back where they were.
I think it will stick with the proviso that the platform itself is invisible and seamless enough. So if we make it easy enough for people to use a digital platform rather than call us and they try it and it's good and easy for them and convenient, then they'll carry on doing it. So I think that's one element. I'm not sure ours is quite good enough yet. So I think we will see a bit of slippage. But I think the other thing is it depends on the nature of what it is that they want. So I don't think we're ever going to get people using an app to tell us that they feel suicidal. I don't think we're ever going to get people to give us the full rundown on their financial problems via an online platform. So yeah, I suspect we'll keep a lot of the little shift that we've had, but there are just some things that will stay offline forever, I suspect.
I agree. And I think back, goodness me, I've worked in contact centres since before they were called contact centres, and I remember whether it was the internet was going to be the death of the contact centre, and then it was digital communication was going to be the death of the contact centre. And as far as I read, there's still just as many people employed in contact centres on voice as there ever has been. And I think that if it's complicated or emotional, by and large, people still want to speak to somebody. By and large, I don't think it matters what industry you're in. If it's a difficult conversation to have, most people will still want to speak to someone. So I don't think that'll ever go away.
Yeah, I would agree. Our call volumes have been relatively flat, probably gone up a little bit over the past 2 years, but we have a load of contact on digital that we didn't used to have. So we just have more contact these days than we used to. But we've got at least as much via the phones. And what we are finding is that the phone conversations are longer because people's lives are more complex and chaotic, and they need more help.
Okay, so Natalie had one more question.
So how do you feel that hybrid working has impacted your leadership teams?
I mean, I think it's been the same as on everybody else. It's just that we miss being physically with each other. And we actually went out for dinner for the first time about 3 weeks ago. in a nice, safe environment, but it was just completely different. And we're aware that there are big, chewy issues that we need to get to grips with, and it's just difficult to do that in this environment. So we are meeting face to face a bit more at the moment, and we'll hopefully be doing more of that. And it's obviously a small group of people, so we can manage it. But that's the thing for us, I think. I think we've all changed our style of leadership through this period, and we've all put a lot more of a premium on the well-being of our teams and spending more time with our teams, albeit mainly digital. And I think the priority around well-being and mental health has ratcheted up another level. It was always a big thing for us anyway in this sector, but it's become probably the most important thing alongside physical safety. So yeah, we're just a few little changes, I think, but we are very aware that it's been a lot harder for a lot more people, and we've probably had it easy in the leadership team.
Yeah. So I think if I'm just to kind of reflect back on our conversation, if I'm thinking about the key things that are takeaways for me, it's about the fact that your hybrid model as an organisation is fluid, because you're not in a place yet where you can see, but ultimately the well-being and the happiness of your team members is the priority, no matter what that model ends up being, alongside ensuring you still create the very best possible customer experience for your customers, but again in a way that's safe.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. And the final example of that is our building will be used differently over time, but we don't know exactly how. How much of it needs to be collaboration space and social space and relaxation space versus people sat at desks staring at screens, because that proportion is going to change completely from what it used to be like, but we don't know exactly how, so we can't invest in it at the moment. So it's the same as it used to be. So our building will change, but I don't know quite how yet. I can't tell people come in and work X days a week because I don't know exactly what's going to work for everyone, and how we use the space will evolve over time.
Okay. Well, that wraps up our time, although I could just keep on chattering for hours, but people listening would just get bored and switch off, I'm sure. But so for everybody who's watching or listening, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you've got any thoughts, any comments or subjects that you'd like us to discuss, please do get in touch either through our website at hybridworksmart.com, or you can email me, which is graham@hybridworksmart.com. Paul, all remains is for me to say thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to the next time you and I can actually meet face to face, because that's been a long time.
Yeah, pleasure. No problem, Graham.
All right.